I'm putting down my foot again. I'm blowing up the sun again. I'm not the battle-worn soldier I thought I was. Might as well go down with the rest of them. No more saying the wrong things. A wooden cross and a wedding ring. I'll let my heart do the talking from now on. Only God can hear my thoughts. Come down and let me see your face. In the mountains where I catch a trace. All alone, and I'm not alone. Where the man goes home, volunteers pack their cars and go. All alone, and I am not alone. And I'm up the mountain and look at the sky. It is cloudy and gray and clear blue at the same time. All that you ever wanted before was a small part. Open up my eyes, oh Lord, open my heart. I don't wanna be so bold to think I could think so bold. Don't rush my big ego and beat it until it falls. Put it in my back pocket and burn it before your throne. Let me move without it cluttering my cold. Act like the desert and let the wind shape you. You're not the main character, you're just your point of view. Let not the tyranny of vanity keep you from God. Head on up the mountain and look at the sky. It is cloudy and gray and clear blue at the same time. All that you ever saw before was a small part. Open up my eyes, oh Lord, open my heart. Heading on up and heading back down again. Tell me, Lord, will I ever truly ascend? Stings when I get too close sometimes, and I don't know if I'll ever be good enough to come home.
Me now.
Yep.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
How's my audio? You hear an echo? Test.
I don't know if it's on my side.
I gotta win the election. I gotta make an impression.
Just make sure I'm using the right
I
microphone.
gotta be on
Okay.
top. I gotta break my back. I
Yeah,
gotta
looks like I'm
make
using the right mic.
it back. I gotta win the election.
Is this making noise?
I gotta make it.
I don't think so.
Okay, then I'm using this mic, this mic,
Okay.
which is
Yeah. It sounded
right-
like it was coming through the headphones for a second.
that's what I'm trying to make sure is not happening, because I've got an actual reasonable quality microphone here.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'm excited for you guys to get to it. And I know it's kind of against atheism, and Jimbob has the affirmative position here, but could you remind me real quick of the specific prompt?
Is the belief in God reasonable?
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. All
And-
right. Let me.
And Jim Bob is arguing affirmative and going first.
Correct. You guys have debated before, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have.
All right, but never on this channel.
It was
Yes.
on this channel.
Oh, it was awesome. I don't know how I missed that, unless it was a minute ago.
It was a month and a half ago.
Okay. I don't know what I was doing. I usually watch all of them. All right, looks like we're basically all set up. Let me just select the right stream, and then we'll go ahead and start in about 5 minutes.
Nice.
You guys want to get any coffee or anything else like that, you're welcome to take this time.
All right.
I'm set.
Cool. Mr. Garrett, are you streaming on your own channel?
I don't have a channel. I have a blog, but no, I just do this as a hobby. Unlike most of your guests, I'm not aspirations here.
Okay. The chat. Issue on one channel or the other, I can be aware and let someone know. All right. All right. Broadcast is ready. We can start at like 2 minutes early. It usually starts right at 8 o'clock my time. Jim, you're in Mountain Time, right?
Yeah.
So you're behind. You're behind. And then Ron, are you East Coast?
No, I'm West Coast. I'm in California.
Okay, so you're even further. Got it. Oh, it's still daytime for you.
Yes, hence all the light coming in through my windows.
Cool. Got the coffee, got the water, got the stream, ready to go. We could start slightly early if you guys don't mind.
Fine with me.
Sure.
Cool. Amazing, as James likes to say. All right, I'm going to start the intro music here. Gotta check on my phone if it is playing correctly. Before we start, I just want to say Tony makes some banger music for that intro, man. I like his music a lot.
Yeah, he's very talented.
I sent him one of my tracks to listen to on stream one time, and he made some funny faces like towards the middle, but he liked the beginning, and he's just like, I would have just stuck with this by itself. You lost me when the drums came in. I was like, dang.
Well, he doesn't really listen to anybody's music. He's that much of a music snob. So
I respect that personally.
Yeah.
Am I meant to be able to hear this music?
No, I'm actually starting it over because it was a little displaced whenever I switched over. I use OBS as well, and I just wanted it to line up with when I actually press go live.
Okay.
Which it should be starting like right now.
I just wanted to let you know that if I'm supposed to be able to hear it, I couldn't.
No, you won't see anything scene switching wise or music or anything like that I put on, but the audience will.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even realize there was music.
Yeah, what you see right here, that's going to be the debate for you. My buddy Justin is audio trolling, saying there's an echo. It hasn't even started yet. There we go. This is the music, Ron. That's just playing off my phone.
Okay, I still can't hear it, but that's fine.
Okay.
I'll get it off the playback after.
Yeah, my filters are doing good then, filtering stuff out. The chat calls it the Home Depot special music. Okay, is belief in God reasonable? That's the prompt. Got it. And then there was no format changes, right? You didn't want to. It's cool with the 5-10 minute opening, 60-minute dialogue, then the Q&A. Cool. About a minute left on the intro. Just keep you updated. About 35 seconds. And I'm gonna start it in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, guys, welcome back to Modern Day Debates. We got a fun one today on the theological front. Today we got Jimbob on the affirmative, Dr. Ron Garrett on the negative, and then we're going to hash it out here over the next hour and a half, 2 hours. We're gonna do 10-minute openings, 5-10 minutes. You don't gotta use the whole amount of time. If you want to go over just a slight bit, I'll ask the other debater if they'll allow it. And then we'll get into a 60-minute open dialogue and then a 30-minute Q&A. 30 minutes usually the minimum. Kind of depends on how long you guys want to chill and react to the super chats that we get for you. And then real quick, I want to remind everyone, like the video, get your tickets to DebateCon 8 coming up in July in Dallas. That's going to be really fun. You got the DeSouza versus Wilson and the Wilson versus Bracatella, and then about 5 to 8 more other ones after that. So it's going to be fun. And you can come meet James and everybody there. It's going to be, as he would say, amazing. And I will start it with Jimbob here on the affirmative, and I'll start your time. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you introduced us, I think you actually forgot to say what the topic was.
Yeah, I was just about to
get
to that. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, I was going to turn it over for the affirmative on the prompt here, which is the belief in God reasonable? And Jimbob, it's all good, buddy. Jimbob, I'll start the time whenever you're ready.
All right, I can start now. Okay, so is the belief in God reasonable or rational? What does it mean to be reasonable or rational? It's based on or in accordance with reason or logic. In order to reason that the belief in God is a rational belief or a reasonable belief, I will be using a very simple argument for God. And by God, I mean a necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. But before I present that argument, it's important that we lay out a whole plethora of things we need to first assume before we can even make arguments or inquire about whether or not a belief is rational. We have to assume a mind exists, both my mind and Ron's, and that they're particular minds, and they're not the same minds. You also have to assume some type of ontology of the mind. If my opponent assumes that a mind is merely a physical apparatus identical to the brain, I'm not sure he can reason at all. Minds which are capable of evaluating and appraising propositions, we have to assume. We have to assume that the external world and its regularity with which we couldn't do induction has to maintain. We have to assume that knowledge and truth exists. We have to assume information and meaning exists. We have to assume universals and particulars exist in order to speak in an intelligible way about the world and ourselves. The reason I bring these up is because we don't determine these things are rational, but we rather assume these things in order to do subsequent analysis of what's rational. These things have to be first assumed and in place. But without God, can these things be in place? Is there any reason to believe in these things without God? I don't think so. In other words, you have to first believe in these things, then you can investigate. Keep in mind, all of the items listed are not found as matter. They're not empirically verified. We don't do any tests on them. They are not determined using measurements or empiricism or science, which for the most part, an anti-God belief is holding to as their epistemology. If we ask, well, what is a reasonable belief? They might say something we can test, something we can look at, something we can hold, something we can smell and eat. Well, that's not the case for them either. Being that logic itself is listed in the definition of rational and as the arbiter for determining whether something is rational or not, including beliefs, it follows that we are holding logic to be universal. That is the status of logic. That is to say, the laws of thought are universal. By universal, I mean it applies to all potential circumstances. I would argue that logic, specifically the classical laws of logic, are absolute and universal, unchanging, and not dependent on human opinion or convention. I would also argue that the laws of logic are conceptual and abstract, hence my argument tonight. The laws of logic are universal and conceptual. I think my opponent will agree with that. What do we know about concepts? Concepts are mind-dependent. They are associated with the mind. There is no concept we can refer to without assuming a mind. The problem is, with Ron's view, is that concepts themselves, being that they're based in minds, when he points to the laws of logic and they are universal, he can't point to any particular mind to ground them, to justify the laws of logic themselves. They can't be grounded in my mind only. They can't be grounded in just Ron's mind. We are particulars. So what type of mind would ground a universal, unchanging, invariant concepts like the three laws of thought? Well, I would argue a divine mind would do that job. How do we ground the laws of logic? If they are universal and conceptual, we cannot ground them in, like I said, Ron's mind or my mind. They must be grounded in an unchanging mind. If I hold God as an unchanging mind, a transcendental mind, and the laws of logic are in fact transcendental, you don't find them in nature at all, but we assume that they exist. They have some type of ontic. Then I have a perfectly good reason to believe in God, if God is merely the holder of the laws of logic as a mind. My opponent not only has to deal with my argument, but he also must provide a standard or criterion to call a belief reasonable himself. So if he says God is an unreasonable position or an unreasonable belief, he has to tell me what constitutes a reasonable belief and how it is that God is outside of that criterion. So I'm interested to hear his criterion. By what standard does Ron use to determine a belief itself is reasonable or not? I bet I could find a couple of things Ron believes in that doesn't meet his own criterion. In addition to that, keep in mind we're debating tonight. We are assuming all of the things listed in my opener, but we're assuming first and foremost that we have a direction toward truth, that we're actually capable through debate and dialogue to gear ourselves in a direction toward truth. However, without God, what is the direction toward from Ron's perspective? I argue that a direction toward truth would be a direction toward God. That would be the purpose of pursuing truth, is to know God, the grounding of all truth. From Ron's perspective, there's actually no reason to be here at all. There's absolutely no reason. Why? Because it's completely teleological. There's no purpose. There's no direction. There's no reason. There's no reason to be here. There's no reason to pursue the truth. There's no reason to hold true beliefs. There's no reason to abandon false beliefs. It would be just like a useless sort of play that we're doing here, right? And I get a number.
4.5 minutes.
I get a number of people to concede to this position that they admit right off the bat, yeah, I have no purpose to be here. There really is no purpose to pursue truth. I can't even tell you why you should abandon a false belief, whether it's God or anything else. Go ahead and believe what you believe. Furthermore, Ron might take the position that his mind, right? Because when we talk about what's reasonable, we have to actually assume a mind exists. Ron can't ground and determine what a mind is. He has to say it's a brain. Not only a brain, but he has to say that it's a brain that's completely deterministic, that it just unfolds based on chemistry and neurology. It's just doing a thing. That means that if that's the case, then all beliefs are determined epiphenomenal effects of a brain. That means his brain producing an outcome and my brain producing an outcome are on the same level. They're on the same ground. There is no more reasonable belief than or less reasonable belief. There's just percolating brains doing stuff. That's all there is, right? Just action, matter in motion, matter in motion. So I don't know how a person who holds the belief, absent God, would probably reduce to pure matter in motion, right? Deterministic matter in motion. How could Ron make a distinction between a reasonable belief and a false belief if matter itself is all identical, right? It's all just particular, clusters of things happening. Well, he really can't. So what I'm looking for tonight is one, I want him to contend with my argument, given the status of truth, given the status of knowledge, given the status of the laws of logic being conceptual and universal. I want to know from his view, being that he has to appeal to logic to determine whether a belief is rational or not. Why does he believe in logic? I mean, that's a fair question. Why would you believe in logic? I would hold that his belief in logic is just as much a leap in his worldview as he thinks my leap to believe in God is. So there's going to be a number of other things that Ron affirms the belief in that won't meet his criterion. And with that, I'll see the rest of my time.
All right. Ron, I'm resetting the timer here and ready when you are.
Okay, so I actually prepared an opening based on an opening that you gave for a previous debate that you did on a similar topic. And the opening that you gave here was fairly similar to that, but different in some ways that are going to make some of my script actually not relevant. So I'm going to have to wing it a little bit. But let's see how far I get. So I've found often that when people disagree about things, it turns out that what they're really disagreeing about is the definitions of words. And once you get past that, it turns out they actually agree on a lot of the substantial stuff. And I'm actually glad that you changed your opening in some of the ways that you did, because I think we're actually going to agree on more than I expected that we would. But I don't think we're going to agree on everything. And so I think it's reasonable if we start out making sure that we agree on the definitions. If we're going to talk about whether belief in God is reasonable, that we start out by agreeing on the definitions of the words God and reasonable, because I don't think that we do. I'm going to start with God. You defined God. So in your previous talk, you defined God as a necessary, universal, and absolute mind. But this time you changed that definition and you said it was a necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. So I'm not quite sure what your actual definition of God is, but that's neither here nor there, because neither of this is what I think of when I hear the word God, especially when it's spelled with a capital G. When I think of capital G God, I think of some kind of deity, which is kind of sort of similar to a necessary, universal, absolute mind, or a, let me make sure I get the words right here, necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. But that's not what the word, it's kind of like that, but it's not quite the same. And I think the differences are important. I happen to know that you're an Orthodox Christian. And when I hear an Orthodox Christian say the word God, what naturally comes to my mind is not a necessary, universal, absolute, transcendental mind, but Jesus and the Bible and the Catechism and parting the Red Sea and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I don't want to knock down a straw man, so I'm going to do my best to engage with your argument as you've presented it. So let's look at that argument. And I was going to say that the position that you were defending, because this is what you did last time, is actually stronger than your brief. But you didn't do that, so I'm going to have to skip this. I'm just going to say quickly what I was going to say, because you did this last time. You seem to me to be defending the position that God actually exists, which is fine. But you don't actually have to do that. You're making things harder on yourself by trying to prove that God actually exists. Because you don't have to prove the truth of a proposition in order to defend that believing that proposition is reasonable. So I want to give you some examples. I brought some props tonight. So I got some steel rings here. And I think it's reasonable for me to believe that these steel rings are solid objects, despite the fact that I can prove to you that they're not. Now,
Of course, he's a
that was
magician.
obviously just a trick. But there's actually a serious point here. All the things we call solid objects, including these rings and the chair that I'm sitting in and my body and so on, aren't really solid. All of these things are made of atoms, and atoms are mostly empty space. The reason these objects normally can't go through each other is not because they're really solid, but because there are electrons on the outside of all these atoms, and electrons repel each other. But it's still reasonable to believe that these things are solid, even though they really aren't. If you try to walk through a brick wall, you will fail, despite the fact that both you and the wall are mostly empty space. I'll give you another example. At the core of modern science are two theories, quantum mechanics and general relativity. Both of these theories are established as true by overwhelming experimental evidence, and yet at least one of them must be wrong because they are mathematically incompatible with each other. It is logically impossible for them both to be actually true, but it's still reasonable, given our current knowledge, to believe that they are both true. And notice that I just hedged with given our current knowledge, and that is actually important. If a parent tells their 6-year-old child that Santa Claus is real, then I would say that it's reasonable for that child to believe it because I think it's reasonable for a 6-year-old child to believe that their parents are trustworthy sources of information. And this matter of trustworthiness lets me give you an example in the opposite direction too, where it is unreasonable for someone to believe something that actually is true. This is hard to demonstrate as a thought experiment, so I'm going to do one last little demo. I have a playing card here, and I promise you this is not a magic trick. It's just the best way that I could think of to make this point.
More magic.
I am telling you that this card is the 3 of clubs. Is it reasonable for you to believe that I am telling you the truth and that this card really is the 3 of clubs? In our last debate, you called me a liar. And so if you think I'm a liar, if you have a reasonable belief that I'm a liar, then you do not have a reasonable belief that I'm
Liar's
telling you the
paradox.
truth, that this card is the 3 of clubs. And so it's not reasonable for you to believe that it is the 3 of clubs, despite the fact that it is, in fact, the 3 of clubs. Okay, I promise I'm done with my demos. Now, I want to actually engage with the substance of your argument as you've presented it. And you started out by listing a long list of assumptions.
You got 4 minutes left.
In your original debate, I counted 9. I think there were more this time. I don't have anywhere, obviously I'm not going to be able to address all of them. I'm going to just focus on 2 of them because I think that'll give us more than enough to keep us busy for the rest of the evening. So you said that we have to assume that minds exist in order to even have a coherent conversation. Now, saying that we have to assume this is a very clever rhetorical trick because you aren't actually assuming it. What you are actually doing is presenting a tacit argument for the proposition that minds exist. If we make that argument explicit, it goes something like this. Minds are necessary in order to discuss whether or not minds exist. You and I are discussing whether or not minds exist, therefore we must have minds, and therefore minds must exist. So the assumption that you have actually made is that minds are necessary to explain things that we observe, namely the fact that we are having a discussion about the existence of minds. The problem is that you haven't defined what you mean by mind. And that word comes with a lot of philosophical baggage, like that there's a distinction between mind and brain. But you haven't actually demonstrated any of that. And in particular, you haven't demonstrated that there is any distinction between minds and brains. It may well be that brains are sufficient to explain our observation that we're having a discussion about the existence of minds. Now, whether there is a distinction between minds and brains used to be a legitimate philosophical debate, but it isn't anymore because nowadays we have machines that can do all of the things that brains and minds can do, including having conversations about whether or not minds exist. So it is manifestly not true that brains are necessary to do these things. So unless you want to argue that AIs have minds, your necessary assumption that minds exist is revealed as not merely begging the question, but an empirical claim that crumbles in the face of actual evidence. The second assumption that I want to challenge is that the laws of logic are universal and absolute, unchanging, and not dependent on human opinion and convention. Now, this is an old and venerable argument. It goes back to at least as far as St. Augustine. around 400 AD, which matters because in Augustine's time, the paragon of logic and reason was Euclid's Elements, which is famously based on 5 assumptions or postulates. The fifth one is called the parallel postulate, and it says that if you have a line and a point not on that line, then it is possible to draw exactly one line through that point that is parallel to the given line. That is pretty long-winded, and Euclid's actual statement of it was even more long-winded. And for almost 2,000 years, people tried to prove that it was true so that they wouldn't have to assume it. Everyone who tried to prove it failed, and the reason they failed is that Euclid's fifth postulate isn't actually true. It turns out that there are consistent systems of geometry where there are 0 parallel lines to the point, and systems where there are many different parallel lines, in fact, an infinite number.
1 minute.
And these systems turn out to be useful for different applications. There is no Platonic truth about the parallel postulate. But it took literally 2,000 years for humans to figure this out. And there are lots and lots of more modern examples. There's something called the continuum hypothesis, and another one that's literally called the axiom of choice, which you can choose to use or not. And so I would like to suggest that we start by achieving clarity on exactly what it is that we're talking about. Are you going to stick with, well, in particular, what's your definition of God and what's your definition of reasonable? And maybe the best place to start will be for me to just ask you if you think that computers have or can have minds, or is that something unique to humans?
I'm
done.
Alrighty. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys doing those openings. Right on track here. We're going to get into the open dialogue. Guys, go ahead, click like on the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel. And we do have a, right here, let's see if it pops up. We have a Facebook clips page. We have a TikTok now, as well as a, what is this last one here? A new sponsor, which is Yonaguni Sushi, international cuisine in Puerto Rico, in Aguadilla. I highly recommend if you're stopping by, check it out. And more about that later. So we'll get into the open dialogue, 60 minutes on the clock here, starting right now. So, Jimbob, if you'd like to respond to his oopening.
Yeah. So a couple things in there. One, I didn't really get a criterion for what constitutes a rational or reasonable belief. It sounded like you said if a kid is told that Santa Claus exists, then they have a reason that they're reasonable in their belief. It's a reasonable, rational belief if
well, it
they
depends on who's telling them.
Yeah, if their parents tell them.
Real quick, I just want to ask that we let each other finish whatever question or line of thought we're doing before we respond. And then if you don't feel like you're going to get the time to respond, I'll make sure that you do. So just be respectful to Jimbob in that full question.
If he's asking me something about something that I said and he's getting it wrong, then we're going to save a lot of time if I correct him on the spot rather than waiting to the end and then having to rewind and say,
I understand.
Way back at the beginning, you got this wrong.
Cool. So. Yeah, just I'm just making sure that it doesn't turn into a interruption habit here.
Yeah, no, I'm all for that.
All right. Go ahead, Jimbob. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so a child is reasonable in their belief in Santa Claus if their parents tell them, if they trust their parents, depending on who tells them, right? So if by that
Did you disagree with that?
Dude.
I just want to know if you agree or disagree with that.
No, I'm using your standard first, and I'm just going to draw out the conclusion of your standard for a second, okay? So, based on that as the standard, if my parents tell me God exists, still today, I called my parents and they say God exists and I trust them. By your standard, it's reasonable for me to believe in God, correct?
Are you 6 years old?
No, it doesn't matter. You said if I trust the person.
No, it does matter. There's a reason why I made it a 6-year-old child.
Okay, so at what point...
The standards that apply for reasonable beliefs of 6-year-olds are different than the standards that apply for reasonable beliefs of adults.
On what basis? Ruh-roh.
I am amazed that I actually have to defend this.
I know you are.
Because 6-year-olds don't have fully functioning brains. And so it's not reasonable to expect the same things from 6-year-olds that we expect from fully functioning adults.
Okay. Would you say it would be a 6-year-old belief, expectation that they believe in God or Santa Claus?
If their parents tell them that, then it's not unreasonable. And they have nobody, and they have no reason to doubt their parents. Then, yeah, sure, it's reasonable for them to believe that.
Okay.
But I would also expect that as they grow up, and that they acquire more information, that they would start to question those beliefs.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they question the beliefs and they're adults and they still hold the belief in God outside of the threshold of the age that you arbitrarily defined as unreasonable versus adult, now I'm reasonable. So if a bunch of adults, right, the majority of humankind believes in God, on what basis are you declaring their belief unreasonable?
Because it's incompatible. Well, so now I have to press you on what you mean by God. Because
a God,
there are definitions of God
yeah.
where, yeah, it's perfectly reasonable. And let me be actually very specific about this.
Okay.
There is a definition of God that is actually very close to something that you find in quantum mechanics, something called the universal wave function. If you define God as this sort of abstract thing that is somehow omniscient and kind of keeps an eye on everything but doesn't actively intervene, and is not actually a person that you can pray to that will answer your prayers, then there are things in quantum mechanics that kind of sort of look like that. But I'm guessing that's not what you mean by God, right?
Right, but if I was defending any definition of God, being that the debate is it reasonable to believe in God? If you just admitted that there is a definition of God that's reasonable, it sounds like you'd conceded the debate.
Well, maybe, except that I am having this debate with somebody that I know to be an Orthodox Christian, and so I have certain reasonable expectations about what you actually mean by God that you are being cagey about.
Well, the thing is, if you have to start with the proposition of a broad concept of God, and you can whittle it down, what we're establishing here is even the broad concept of God as the creator of all things, omniscient being, someone who, like I said in my opener, someone who can ground a type of mind that's not just a human particular mind, a type of mind that can actually ground and house, let's say, universal concepts like the laws of logic. If that mind was necessary in my reasoning, it would be reasonable to believe that a mind exists that transcends human minds that can justify laws of logic and truth and stuff, right?
So what do you mean by mind?
Well, a mind is, like, from a human perspective, a mind is a knower.
A knower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A knower. A human knower, however, can
a computer have a mind?
No.
Okay.
That's why I actually want to touch on that, because you actually said in your opener that computers can think and do things and without
I didn't say they could think.
Well, you said they could do stuff that humans can do.
I said they could have conversation. They could engage in conversations, including conversations about very abstract topics like whether or not minds exist.
You said that machines can do what humans do.
I said that machines can engage in conversations.
Well,
I read from a script. I can tell you exactly word for word what I said.
Ron, machines, and you said you don't need the human, but the human needed to make the machine. You said it in your opener. Read it back.
I didn't say anything about who made who.
Read the part in your opener about machines and humans.
Sorry, I closed the document because I wasn't expecting to need it again. Yeah, okay. So whether there's a distinction between minds and brains used to be a legitimate philosophical debate. Mm-hmm. But it isn't anymore, because nowadays we have machines that can do all the things that brains and minds can do.
Really?
Including having conversations about whether or not minds exist.
Okay, stop there. You said machines can do all the things that human minds can do. The human mind made the machine. Did the machine make itself?
It can. Nowadays, it absolutely can.
No, without the human.
It can. Nowadays, yes, it can.
No, without the human coding it to do it.
Yes, it really can.
So you're saying
nowadays computers can write their own code.
What made the computer write its own code?
Well, nowadays the way you get a computer to write its own code is you literally just say write some code.
Yeah, who does that?
Well, most of the time it's humans doing that, but
when
you
is it
can
not?
actually get. Well, you can set up two AIs to talk to each other.
You can?
and
Is
have
that
one of
me?
them ask-
Wait. You can set an AI? Is that a me as a human or?
So we are still in the early days of AI.
That's not what I asked you, dude. I don't need a story about AI. I'm asking you, you said computers and machines can do all these things that humans can do, which was alluding to the idea that they are somehow independent and neutral on their own doing their thing. But the reality is humans made them. We engineered them to do things.
Yeah.
So that's false. So your opening statement has a falsity in it. So just concede.
Okay. Maybe I need to wordsmith it a little bit.
Okay, good. So if that's the
Computers
case,
can do the things that minds can do that make you think that the minds exist. So what exactly is it that you think that humans can do that computers can't, that shows that we have minds and they don't?
code computers to do things.
But computers can do that.
No,
They absolutely can do that.
No, only with us to do. Look, dude, how are
No,
you not
that's
getting
not-
this? How are you not getting this? Human being.
So-
Look, no, Ron, hold on. Human beings make machines. They make machines do stuff. One of the things that humans make machines do is stuff that humans kind of do. The machine itself on its own doesn't do that without the human.
No, you're actually wrong about that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Show me.
Really.
Show me.
And this happens. I mean, this is literally my area of expertise.
Oh, really?
This is yes.
So show me an example of a machine absent the human coding it, engineering it to unfold a set of commands that are complex. Show me where the computer without a human self-existed.
How do you expect me to show that to you right now here in this context?
Give me an example.
Is there really any doubt in your mind that if I went away for a couple of days that I could come back with a machine that does exactly what
A machine made by who?
Nowadays, the machines are made by other machines.
And who makes the machine that makes the machine?
Originally, this was all started by humans.
That's right. And without humans, without
really
humans,
wanna start-
without humans, it wouldn't be able to do that, right?
No, that's
Great.
not true. Nowadays, the machines could actually
Holy
get along
shit,
with
dude.
that.
What's a machine? This is unbelievable. A machine is something that's built by humans, correct?
Not necessarily.
When is a machine not built by a human? That's a
Is your
computer.
car a machine?
Is it built by a human?
Is your car a machine?
Yeah.
Your car is almost certainly today not built by a human.
Really?
It's almost
Who-
certainly
who
built
makes-
by it's
Oh,
almost
really?
certainly built by a robot.
Oh, by a machine.
By a machine.
And
yeah.
who built the robot?
Probably another robot.
And then who built that robot?
Originally, it all started with. I mean, obviously, humans kickstarted the process.
Great. Yeah. So what I'm saying is a machine can't can't be the source of kickstarting its own making process. It has to be intentional. Now, when you ask me the question, what's distinct is that humans have intentionality. Machines themselves just act if-then statements. They just do commands. That's all they do.
And how do you know that that's not what we do?
Well, if you're claiming that that's what we do, then knowledge is impossible, if that's what you're claiming.
What is knowledge?
Justified true belief.
Justified true belief.
And I'll tell you how. I'll give you an argument and you see if you can contend with it. If you're a machine and I'm a machine and everything I think and do and say is deterministic, that is to say it's just the result of physical dominoes happening, I have no say in the matter of the pursuit of whatever I'm about to say or come to the knowledge of or any of my evaluations. They are events. They're just events. Now, if human thinking, what you call human thinking, is merely just physical events happening, they're actually ontologically no different than rain or grass growing. But the problem with that, Ron, is those aren't propositional. Events themselves aren't propositional. They're not truth apt. They just happen. They're just happening. So how could you place something that's just happening mechanically in the category of truth apt? That you can't.
So you're using a lot of words here.
That's what
You're
talking
introducing
is.
A lot of words without defining them. You've introduced
Like
the word
what?
propositional and truth apt.
You don't know what a
and-
proposition is?
I know what a proposition is. I don't know what propositional as an adjective means.
Okay, that's fine. Let me clarify. So
Okay.
if I say there's a blade of grass, it would be incoherent for me to say the blade of grass is true. It's just a blade of grass, right? It's not true or false.
The
It's the wrong.
proposition that this thing that you're looking at is a blade of grass.
That's a
that
problem.
can-
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the thing itself without the statement. The thing itself The blade of grass isn't.
Well, truth is a property of propositions.
I
So
understand.
To say that truth can't be a property of a blade of grass, that's
No.
just a category error.
Dude, where in the blade of grass is a proposition?
There isn't a
Great. So you
proposition in a
agree.
blade of grass.
So you agree. Blades of grass as objects are not propositional. That's what we agree
Okay,
on. Great. Okay,
all right.
great.
That sounds like a deepity to me.
Hold on.
It's an obvious trivial observation.
No, it's not
that
trivial.
you've dressed up in a lot of fancy
No,
words.
you're not listening. You're not even trying to listen. So if a blade of grass is not propositional, neither is a tornado, neither is a waterfall or anything else. They're just happenings, right? They're just events. They're objects and events. They're not propositional.
They're not
Yeah, they're not propositional. You agree. Now,
Okay,
if you hold that your brain is a set of more deterministic events that are just unfolding, then your brain, what you call an evaluation itself, is also just an event and can't be propositional unless you do special pleading.
Okay, I still don't understand then what you mean by propositional. That sounds like nonsense to me. Because there are propositions and there are blades of grass, and they are two completely different ontological categories.
No, not under the view. If you just said what? No,
they are.
Ron, if you just said
so
what?
So let me explain to you how they are different.
Tell me the
ontological
category.
categories
Yeah,
under
tell
my
me.
view.
Tell me.
All right. So I have a materialistic view of the world.
Yep.
I actually have two different materialistic views of the world that I could argue from. There's the view of classical mechanics and the view of quantum mechanics. And I'm going to go with classical mechanics because that's a lot more easy to intuit, even though I have to start with the caveat that classical mechanics.
Do you mean by
classical
material
mechanics?
No, hold on a second. Do you mean by material? Do you mean physicalism, like pure physical?
I mean that the ontology of my theory is that the world is that things are made of atoms.
Yeah.
That exist in particular places at particular times. And everything that we observe can be explained in terms of the arrangements and trajectories of atoms.
Okay, what about the things we can observe that you think exist?
Those are explanations for the things that I can observe.
No.
Sometimes I have to hypothesize something that I can't observe in order to explain something that I can. So for example...
No, hold on. Don't go too fast. An explanation itself, if you're a materialist or a physicalist, is an explanation itself made of physical matter?
No.
Okay, so do you believe in explanations, that they exist?
Yes.
So you believe that things exist that aren't made of matter that you can't actually verify exist?
That's right.
Okay, so if that's your standard for existence...
You want me to explain how?
No, I don't, because if you...
So you're not interested in
because I'm bringing up...
You're not interested in actually learning my point of view. You just want to dominate the conversation.
I am.
Fine, go ahead.
I'm going to dominate the conversation anyway, but the thing is, I'm bringing it back to the topic, which is, if you hold a belief that something exists and it's reasonable to believe things that are immaterial, not concrete, non-physical, that they exist, like explanation or logic or truth or knowledge or meaning. These are things that you can't point to in the world, and you just admitted that you think it's rational to believe they exist. So hold on, hold on a second. I don't care why, because if you
don't care why.
This is why.
So you are not arguing a good faith.
No, I'll get the why.
If you don't care why, then
I'll get the why in a second. I'm getting to the.
You'll get a chance to explain your view. I just want to let Jimbob get the rest of this logic he's thinking down, and then you can respond.
But you
made a false assumption here. Everything you say from here on out,
you can say that in your response. We have plenty of time.
Okay.
Whatever your reasoning is, if you concede that you believe in things, do you think it's reasonable to believe in things without any physical evidence? Then that's at least.
I didn't say that.
You just said you believe that propositions and evaluations exist, but they're not physical. That means you believe in something that's non-physical.
That's not the same as believing in them without any physical evidence. So
what?
Stop putting words in my mouth.
Listen, you're not listening to me. So
absolutely
is there any is there any physical evidence of a physical thing called an evaluation?
I don't know what you mean by an evaluation.
Do evaluations exist?
I don't know what you mean by evaluation, so I can't answer that question.
Are you playing dumb now? You don't know what it means to evaluate something? Okay, so if I wrote down 2 + 3 = 7, and you read that, would you be evaluating that phrase?
Okay, is that what you mean by an evaluation? Evaluating a mathematical formula and
you can look, dude. You can evaluate the external world. You can evaluate light.
The word "evaluate" can mean all kinds of things. I don't know which of various.
What do you think I mean?
Possibly have it. I have no idea. You have to tell me.
You don't know. Okay, cool. Evaluation. Okay, so an observer looking at and summarizing data.
Yeah, that's obviously a thing that's possible.
Okay,
that's
cool.
That's a thing that happens.
That thing that happens, is that made of material?
No, the activities are not made of
Cool.
materials.
Do activities exist?
Yes.
Okay, so do you believe in something that exists that's not made of material?
Yes.
Okay, so you wouldn't say there's a physical thing identical to the thing that you're saying exists.
So the thing that's not material that I believe that exists is something called a state. So I said that the ontology of my theory is that the world is made of atoms that exist in particular places and particular times. Mm-hmm. The thing that matters, the thing that causes all of the complex phenomena that we observe, is that particular arrangements of atoms work differently and have different properties than other arrangements of atoms.
Okay, so
and an arrangement of atom is called a state, and transitions between arrangements of atoms are called activities, and these things exist. States and activities exist, but they are in a different ontological category than the atoms themselves.
Okay, so now back to the topic of the debate. When you believe something exists and it's reasonable to believe it exists, what criterion are you using to determine it's reasonable to believe something exists?
I think it's reasonable to believe something exists if it's necessary to explain your observations.
If it's necessary to explain your observations, then it exists.
And by that, I mean your personal subjective experience. So a consequence of that is that what's reasonable for you to believe exists might be different than what's reasonable for me to believe exists. It might be.
Okay.
I don't think it actually is. It will turn out not to be. But I'm not assuming that.
Okay, so
the criterion is that what's reasonable to believe exists is what's necessary to explain your personal subjective observations.
Okay, but the thing is, on what basis would you trust your personal subjective observations? If I had a personal subjective observation that God exists, and I'm with the majority of humankind since the beginning that we can trace, are you calling the majority of humankind unreasonable, given that their subjective experience is that God exists?
So I don't believe that you've had a subjective experience that God exists. I believe
gaslighting.
I believe that you've had subjective experiences that you explain in terms of God's existence. But I believe that if we dug into it, you would realize that these experiences are not actually an experience of God existing.
Wait, whoa. Listen, that's total. Hold on, that's totally gaslighting.
Unchanging and transcendental.
Hold on. You just gaslit people who have an experience that's just on equal par as you, right? You just made the standard that having a subjective experience will determine whether or not what's reasonable to believe in. That means nominalism. You know what nominalism is? That means that essentially means that you as a particular human are the only standard for what constitutes a reasonable belief for you, Ron. But your reasonable criterion actually doesn't apply to anyone else because it's all relativistic. So if it's relativistic, hold on. I know you want to talk. If it's relativistic and it's all arbitrarily defined by our personal standards, what constitutes our subjective experience, then me, including everyone else who believes in God, whoever they think God is, from their subjective experience, they came to the conclusion that God exists. Is that a reasonable belief?
Yeah. If it's true, I dispute that. I don't believe that it's true.
No, the question isn't whether or not it's true.
So you had your Jimbob, you had your chance.
You just shifted.
Yeah,
Jimbob,
well, let's let Ron
had your chance.
Give a second here, and then you can respond to it.
If you're going to interrupt, look, we can either interrupt each other and stop each other.
I can go to timed responses.
Am I talking right now?
Okay. So you said God is a necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. And you said that you had a direct subjective experience of a necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. Is that really what you're claiming?
No, that's actually not what I said. I said if, based on your standards, someone did have a subjective experience that God exists, based on their own standard, would it be reasonable for them to believe in God?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the debate.
But no, it's not, because the next question is, what's it like to have a subjective experience of God?
It's all subjective to me. You couldn't possibly know.
Yeah, but you can still describe it, right?
Well, no.
I can describe my subjective experiences. In fact, let me describe one for you. Here's a subjective experience that I had when I was 12 years old. I was at a YMCA summer camp. And this was in...
You don't have to say this publicly.
Don't have to say what publicly?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What is it that you thought I was going to say?
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was at a YMCA summer camp. I was 12 years old. It was in Tennessee. So I was surrounded by Southern Baptists, and they proselytized me mercilessly for 2 weeks. And at the end of that time, I had a conversion experience. And I had a subjective experience that at the time I described as feeling the presence of the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. And I went home and I told my parents about this. For about 3 days, I was a true believer. I thought I had actually experienced God. Mm-hmm. And then my father said, okay, if you're going to be a Christian, you should read the Bible. And I started reading the Bible, and that deconverted me fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. But just because somebody says that they've experienced God doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually what they've experienced. It could be that what they actually experienced can be explained by something else. It's possible.
I know, Bron, but the question isn't whether or not you're verifying what they experience is true or not. The question is, if they did have the full experience from their direct experience, that they in your case experienced God, you would say from your own experience that at that time, time and place, right, that you just said, it was completely reasonable for you to believe in God, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I would
watch.
say it was.
Okay, watch. If someone like you maintains that experience in their lifetime, isn't their belief in God justified then?
Well, it depends. It depends on what other information they have at their disposal. So in my case, for example, I started reading the Bible. And because of the things that I saw in the Bible, it became very unreasonable for me to maintain my belief in God.
Ron, you didn't answer the question. The question is this.
No, I did.
If someone was at the same camp as you, and everything after that they did, they read the Bible, they went to other things, they did everything, but it kept producing the phenomenon that was equal to the phenomenon you experienced. And it just kept layering itself, looping itself back to God exists, God exists, God exists. From that perspective, if you isolate one moment in time for you where it's justified and it's reasonable to believe in God based on an experience, then it's also justified for another person. If that experience is elongated for the rest of their life, then it's reasonable for them to believe in God.
Again, maybe. It depends on what else they have what other information they have at their disposal. But let me ask you this. Is this just a hypothetical, or does this really happen?
Yeah, according to you, what's really happening for people who believe in God is exactly that.
Well, I know people who believe in God who don't claim to be directly experiencing God all the time.
Okay, but they're experiencing something. Okay, so like so when they go to church, they experience something. When they read a book on they read the church fathers, they're experiencing reading, right? They're reading the lives of the saints. So
all of that can be explained without God.
No. The question isn't whether or not it can be explained without God. The question is whether or not it's reasonable to believe in God.
So remember my definition of what is reasonable to believe in.
That it's necessary?
Yeah.
Okay, how would you know it's necessary?
And let me tell you why. Because I cannot prove that there isn't an invisible pink unicorn standing behind me. But I don't think it's reasonable for me to believe that there is an invisible pink unicorn standing behind me, because the invisible pink unicorn is not necessary to explain anything that I can observe.
How would you know what's necessary?
By thinking about it, by arguing about it, by consulting with other people and seeing if they can poke holes in my arguments.
Okay, so
by having discussions like this one that we're having right now.
Okay. So the three classical laws of logic, you would say you believe they exist because they're necessary for you to do other things.
What are the three classical laws of logic?
The law of identity, excluded middle, and non-contradiction.
Okay, so the law of excluded middle is not actually true. And I can demonstrate that to you, that you've heard of the liar's paradox, right?
Well, no, the liar's paradox, the reality is it's true that someone's either lying or not. The fact that you can't tell
No,
because
it really isn't.
Hold
Here,
on.
let me demonstrate it to you. You already believe that I'm a liar. You've said so yourself. So I'm going to tell you, yeah, you're right. I am a liar. Every sentence that I say, including the one I am saying right now, is a lie.
It's either true that you're lying or it's false that you're lying.
Was the sentence that I just said a lie or not?
No, you're confusing whether or not I have access to knowing it versus whether or not there's a truth to the matter.
No, because if you think about it, if you assume that it's true, then it's false, and if you
No,
assume
that's
that
an
it's false, then it's true.
dude. That's an epistemic problem. The question of how I know if you're lying or not is the paradox is what the paradox is exposing. The reality is there would be a truth.
I just told you that I'm
Ron. I don't care what
sorry.
you're telling me. If you tell me, if I think you're a liar and you tell me your age, and I don't know if you're lying or not because whatever you're saying, it could be a lie. That's irrelevant to whether or not That's irrelevant to whether or not there is a truth to what your age is.
Well, yes, that's true.
Yeah, so excluded middle is reaffirmed. There are philosophers who actually tried to remove the excluded middle, but by trying to remove the excluded middle, they're actually affirming the excluded middle. Now, even if I remove the excluded middle for you, Ron, right? Don't get caught up on it. The laws of logic, right? From your view, I'm talking right now. The laws of logic, right? Law of identity, non-contradiction, even if you remove the excluded middle, right? If you affirm those merely because they're necessary for something, right? Then you're actually saying that they're conventions. Are you saying they're conventions?
Yes, I am actually.
Okay, if they're conventions, could you actually remove the law of identity from reality?
So the law of identity is actually not really it's not really a law.
That's
it's
a
just a
contradiction.
definition. It's a definition of the word of the equal sign. It's just a definition of the word is.
Is that a fact or is that
it's a
cannot be true?
deity.
Can that not be true?
It can, yeah.
Okay.
You could possibly present an argument that I'm wrong about that.
Well, no. If somebody can be wrong about something, that's assuming the law of identity is held in static. So.
How?
Because there's either right or wrong. That's assuming that the law of identity holds true.
No, that's assuming the excluded middle.
Well, no. Yeah, well, the law of identity, the excluded middle is a byproduct of the law of identity. So it's either the case that something's true or it's either the case that something's false, right?
How is that a byproduct of the law of identity? So first of all, if
It's
it's a byproduct, then there aren't three fundamental laws of logic. There are only two.
No.
Because you just told me you can.
No, dude.
It's a byproduct. You can
Look,
derive
it's
the excluded middle from the law of identity. And all of this is just utter nonsense.
It's an entailment, dude. To say something's nonsense is to affirm the laws of logic, dude. Is it actually nonsense or is it conventionally nonsense?
It is my opinion that it is nonsense.
Right.
It sounds like nonsense to me.
Well, I mean, that's
Now,
not.
It may be that you are saying something true and profound here, but if you are, then you are failing to communicate it to me.
Okay, let me communicate it in a different way. Before you existed and all humans existed from your perspective, was there a time in reality humans didn't exist?
Yes.
Okay. Were there items in nature?
Yes.
Did those items have identities?
No.
They didn't.
And I'll tell you. I'll tell you why. Do you know? If you heard of the ship of Theseus, I have not finished my answer,
Dude,
Jimbob.
I'm not finishing my cross-exam right now, okay? I know the ship of Theseus, and it's like the problem with that is it's still universally pointed to as a ship. Whether it's the same ship is not the question. The question is it
That
a
is
ship?
exactly the question
Hold
you
on.
asked me.
Is it a dude? You just contradicted yourself. I asked you, in the past, before humans existed, did objects exist? You said yes. That's affirming the law of identity.
No.
It's not? Okay, objects exist, and I don't know what that means.
So an object is just a word that we use for a particular configuration of atoms.
Do particulars exist? Do atoms exist as particulars in the past before humans?
I don't know what you mean by particulars. Atoms existed before humans.
Atoms, are they particulars?
I don't know what you mean by particulars.
A particular thing. One atom, two atoms, three atoms?
No, actually, so this is one of the interesting things about atoms. And here we actually have to get into quantum mechanics. Atoms are fungible. Atoms come in a finite number of different varieties. There are 90 two of them with some variations on the theme called isotopes. You know all this, right?
No, I think it's irrelevant because the question here.
it's not
No, this
irrelevant.
is all, dude. This is all just filibustering.
It's not.
We're not here to learn about what you think about atoms. Okay. The question, Ron.
You are here. You asked
No.
me a question about atoms, and you're
No,
and I'm answering
that's not
it,
the question
and then
I
you
asked.
interrupted me in the middle of my
That's
answer.
not the question I asked.
And then
though.
you complain. So look, Jimbob, we're either going to be allowed to interrupt each other or we're not.
Okay, don't answer
Which
my
is
question.
it? I am answering your question. Your question was, are atoms particulars in the way that you define them? Do atoms have identity? And the answer is no, they don't.
Okay, you have nothing to reference then.
What?
If atoms don't have identity, when you say atoms over here, atoms over there, I don't need to listen to you because they have no referent. Do you know what a referent is?
Yes.
What's a referent?
A referent is a thing that is referred to by a word or a phrase.
That's right. So when you use the term atom or atoms plural, you are denying the thing you're referring to.
Here we are actually getting into the difference between classical mechanics and quantum mechanics. If you really want me to give you a primer on quantum mechanics, I'm happy to do that, but I don't think that that's really what the audience came for.
That doesn't actually address anything I said.
Well, it tells you that the answer to your question is long and complicated.
Okay, fine. Let's avoid it
And
then.
I'm happy to give it to you if you want me
No,
to.
I'm trying to
but
get-
I don't think the audience is going to be well served by that.
I'm trying to
I
get-
think the audience is going to be better served if we make a couple of reasonable simplifying assumptions.
Here's what I'm trying to get
like
to. Okay.
That say this object exists.
Nope, you don't affirm that.
My explanation for this object is that it is a particular configuration of atoms.
Yeah.
But the identity of this object is contingent on some things that if you push on the edges of it, we'll find are not true.
Look, dude, it's really simple. The reason I asked about the
not
past,
simple at all.
the
It's
reason I asked about the past, if you affirm a past exists where what we call later rocks, trees, water, the laws of nature, right, gravity, all of these things, thermodynamics, gaseous laws and behaviors, you would affirm in the past that those things exist, right?
Because it's the best explanation for things that I observe now,
Well, no, it's also,
including the fact that I perceive the passage of time.
yeah, but the thing is, you're assuming a past, right?
I'm not assuming it. The past is something that I hypothesize in order to explain.
That's what a
observations
hypothesis
in the
is,
past.
dude. It's an assumption.
No, a hypothesis is a guess.
That's an assumption.
No, there is a difference between an assumption and a guess.
Okay, what's the major?
A guess is something that you tentatively assume.
Is the hypothesis tentative?
Yes.
Great. You're not making any distinctions here. The question isn't about what these words mean. The question is, if you hold to that the law of identity applies in the past to nature without naming nature, it applies to nature.
I haven't conceded that the law of identity
okay.
applies to anything. I think the law of identity is nonsense.
The law of identity is nonsense. And I'm
The
actually...
law of identity is a deepity. It is a trivial observation.
You don't observe it.
It is a definition of a word that we find convenient.
Where do you observe it?
Because I observe people talking about it.
No.
I observe people saying that is a thing.
No.
And it's the same thing
No,
now as
that's
it was
a proposition.
5 seconds ago.
That's a proposition. So the thing is, you just said you observe the law of identity. Let me ask you a different question, Ron,
I
because
did
this
not
is
say
this is
that.
going to go nowhere. Do you believe rights exist?
Rights? Yes, I do believe. Yes, I believe rights exist.
So you think it's reasonable to believe a thing called a right exists?
Mm-hmm.
And would you admit that a right is not something you can measure or hold or see or taste or move?
A right is a kind of state. A right is a kind of idea, which is a kind of mental state.
That wasn't my
asking.
asking. That wasn't my question.
It was exactly
No.
what you asked.
Do you agree that a right isn't something you can weigh, taste, move, manipulate with your hands?
Yes, of course.
Great.
I agree with that.
Okay, cool. So you believe a right exists, right? That has some sort of ontology, and you think you're justified in believing the right.
Yes.
Now,
Yes, rights are states.
hold on. You said earlier what constitutes rational or reasonable is if it's necessary. Are rights necessary?
To explain certain things. Yeah, rights are necessary to explain the fact that people believe that they exist.
What the hell? So God is necessary in order to justify that people believe God exists.
No.
That's literally what you just said.
Yeah, but let me explain to you the difference.
You're a sophist, dude. You're a sophist.
Let me explain to you why there's a difference. Because the word God is loaded in a way that the word rights is not.
That's not an argument.
Let me finish.
What does loaded mean? I'm trying to get loaded. I think you're loaded.
The word God comes with all kinds of intellectual baggage.
So do rights, dude.
Yes, but
I'm gonna totally not
comes with baggage like the Bible.
No, it doesn't.
Prayer.
No, it
like
doesn't.
Intervention.
No, it
in the
doesn't.
world.
Not if you're a pantheist. No, not if you're a pantheist or something like that. So stop
Sure,
it.
but if you're a Catholic, it does.
Who cares? We aren't talking about that. We're talking about God as a general belief, just like rights are a general belief. You just gave right. Hold on, Ron. You just said that what constitutes reasonable belief is that it's necessary for all these other things. I asked, are rights necessary? You know what your answer was? Yeah, rights are necessary for people to affirm they exist. Okay, God is necessary.
No, that's not what I said.
Yes, it is.
Okay, can I do a screen share on this?
I believe so. Give me 1 second.
We got into a similar argument in our last debate, and I actually went back and reviewed the tapes.
The tapes.
So I want to play.
You got a VHS?
I also just want to let you guys know we have about 23 minutes left or so in the open dialogue here.
Okay, so while you're looking for that, I just want, because I don't want to waste time here, is that if you affirm rights, but it doesn't meet your criteria for necessary, because obviously people had beliefs before rights existed, and obviously, rights being a thing is a very modern Enlightenment thing, right? It's a creature, right? And if it's a creature, it's also a convention. So if it's a convention, it's not actually necessary for anything, but yet you believe in it. So I'm pointing out one thing you believe that doesn't meet the necessary criterion that you presented. But if you defend rights as a reasonable belief because they work. Right? Some people say that. Would you say you defend it's reasonable to believe in rights because they work?
No, it's reasonable to believe in rights because rights are an idea and ideas exist.
God is an idea and ideas exist. Therefore, it's reasonable to believe in God.
You think God is just an idea?
No, if it's an idea, it's reasonable to believe it.
Oh, no, absolutely. God as an idea is absolutely reasonable to believe it.
Cool.
Are you ready to share your screen?
I've tried.
Ruh-roh.
I need to do a dry run on this. This is not working, so I'm not going to be able to do it. In fact, now I can't get rid of the sharing window. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this. So I'll just have to post I'll send you a link to. I was going to play a short video clip from our last debate, but I'll just send a link so that the audience can look it up later. It's neither here nor there. Let's just get back to this discussion. Yeah, if you want to defend God as an idea, I will absolutely accept that.
Then it's reasonable to
believe. I will agree with you. God as an idea absolutely exists.
Then it's reasonable to believe in God in the way that.
As an idea, yes.
Well,
absolutely.
So are rights.
And if that's the way you define God, then we have nothing to argue about.
Well, then why?
I'm pretty sure that's not actually how you define God. I don't think you agreed. I don't think you actually believe that God is just an idea. I think you think that God has some kind of transcendental reality beyond just a mere idea that exists in people's brains.
A being. Like, I could step further that God is a being, a necessary being, but that's not even necessary for the debate because you just conceded that as so long as a belief is just an idea, all ideas that are believed in are reasonable.
No, not all of them.
Why not? They're all ideas.
So when I say God is an idea, what I mean is that God is basically a mental construct, a fictional character, a myth. That's what it means for God to just be an idea.
So are rights.
Yes.
So you believe in myths. So that means that you.
Oh, absolutely.
So I want everyone to realize that in a debate on what's reasonable to believe in, Ron here affirms that myths are reasonable to believe in.
As long as you understand that they're myths, yeah.
No. It doesn't matter if you understand their myths.
No, that matters a lot.
No, why would it matter?
because it's important to understand what ontological category a thing belongs in.
No, dude.
Don't tell me no. This is my
no,
worldview. I get to
you don't no,
I get to
you
tell
don't
you
no.
I am the ultimate authority of what
That's
my
just
worldview
your
is.
belief, though. We're talking about.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah. So that doesn't apply to everybody. Like I said, your system for what constitutes a reasonable belief is completely arbitrary.
Do you think that I'm? What would you call a reasonable? What was your criteria? For
I'm
being
fine with.
reasonable and unreasonable?
Look, I'm fine with going with justified true belief. Do you know what that means? A justified true belief.
That's a definition of knowledge. That's not a definition of reasonable.
No. It's justified is synonymous with reasonable in that case. Justified. It's justified that you believe in something. And do you know that that's the going term for what constitutes knowledge?
Yeah, I'm aware of that. And did you know that that's been debunked? That
What's been?
The idea that knowledge can be defined as justified true belief, that's no longer accepted. I forget who it is. I could look it up for you if you want to give me a minute. There's a philosopher who's actually come up with a convincing counterexample for that, where somebody can have a justified true belief that is not actually
the Gettier problem?
That sounds right, yeah.
I understand the Gettier problem, but the problem is that the justified true belief would still apply to the problem itself. So if you posit,
no, it doesn't. That's Gettier is a counterexample.
You're not letting me answer. They gave a hypothetical where someone has a justified true belief in something that's false, right? The money in the pocket, right?
It's a justified
who gets the job?
True belief.
No, what you're demonstrating is that someone can come to the knowledge of something true without knowing it's true.
No, that's not the counterexample. The counterexample is that somebody comes to a true belief through a justification that's not the right justification. That's the trick to making this work.
Okay.
I forget the details because I wasn't really expecting to be getting into these philosophical
Hold on.
needs,
Does that make the belief in God, doesn't that give it even more elasticity insofar as reasonability?
There's a tremendous amount of elasticity in the belief in God. And where it becomes unreasonable, but this is what the leap that most people make.
Yeah.
Is that when people make claims, material claims about the effects of God on the material world.
Yeah. That's when you stop because you're taking empiricism to be the standard, right?
If somebody wants to believe in God as just a character in a storybook, from which we can learn lessons, but which doesn't actually have effects in the world, I have no problem with that. That's perfectly reasonable.
Okay, but the thing is,
but again, I don't think that's the God you believe in, and it's not. And it doesn't make for a very interesting discussion if you won't defend the God that you believe in.
Well, you can't get to the God I believe in unless you start with a general agreement of where we're pointing to insofar as God.
Well, walk me through.
I already told you. Is truth absolute?
No.
Okay, is that absolute?
I don't know what you mean by absolute.
It means it's true regardless of human minds and our opinions and everything else, that the truth of the matter is absolute. It's not going to change. Our conception and our apprehension of it might increase or decrease with resolution, but the truth itself, is it universal and absolute?
I don't know, and let me explain why I don't know. So part of my subjective experience is that I dream. Right? Do you dream? You have dreams? Mm-hmm. Do you believe your dreams are real?
While I'm in them?
Yeah. Well,
no.
Right now, do you believe your dreams are real? While you're in them, they feel real, right?
Yeah, I have a phenomenon during sleep that's called a dream. Yeah.
Right. And while you're in the dream, it feels real. But then you wake up and you realize that it was just a dream and it wasn't real, right?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Not all the time.
Okay, so how can you be sure that right now that you're actually awake and not asleep and dreaming?
Well, I think that kind of question assumes the distinction that you're trying to deny, which is there's a thing called dreaming to begin with.
So there might not be. Dreaming.
Well, then I don't know what you're referencing.
Dreaming is an explanation for the thing that I observe, which is that I have these weird experiences sometimes that feel real at the time.
Yeah.
And then I go through this transition in my experience that I call waking up.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm in this different kind of reality that is consistent and hangs together in a way that this other experience didn't.
So
and my explanation for that is that the one thing is dreams and they're not real. And the other thing is something I call reality and that is real. But no, I don't know that that's an absolute truth. That's a hypothesis, and it could be wrong. I don't think it is. I'm quite confident that it's not.
Okay.
But it could be.
Okay, so in order to make a hypothesis, are you affirming that something's necessarily true?
No.
You're not?
No.
Okay. To make a hypothesis, are you first starting with the assumption that there's a you that could make a hypothesis?
No.
Oh, it doesn't.
Even my own existence is an explanation for my subjective experiences. It's
great.
It's Descartes.
Well, do you understand that the turn you just took makes any belief rational?
No. How so?
Because if you don't know you're dreaming and you don't know what the difference between reality and non-reality or dreaming and non-dreaming, then anything that you think of could actually be the case. It's reasonable from that perspective. Hold on. Listen, dude. It could be the case. It's reasonable to believe that it could be the case, that everything is just an illusion. It could be the case.
Sure.
That's reasonable.
But the odds are extremely low. So there are things that are reasonable.
Do you know how to determine odds?
As that are true as indistinguishable. The probability that they're true is indistinguishable from 1, or the probability that they're false is indistinguishable from 0. And as far as I can tell, the probability that the objective reality that I observe is a dream is indistinguishable from 0. That doesn't mean that it's actually 0 or that I couldn't be wrong.
Well, your idea of, if from that view, if couldn't be, could be wrong, stochastics, probability, if that, you wouldn't even know to believe probability.
I can't refute solipsism.
Well, saying you can't or you can refute solipsism is assuming non-solipsism.
Yeah, I believe in non-solipsism, but I can't prove it.
Okay, is it reasonable?
The reason I believe in non-solipsism is because non-solipsism is a better explanation for the things that I observe, including having conversations with people like you and getting frustrated because if you were just part of my mind, as the solipsists say, well, I know you'd behave differently.
I know I've been in your mind for months. So the thing is, how would you know that a God view is less reasonable than a non-God view?
So not all God views are less reasonable. Only the ones that make material claims about the world that are at odds with our observations, which I believe is the kind of God view that you hold, but that you are
but you're already
interestingly cagey about.
You're inconsistent with your criterion. You already said that rights are reasonable belief, but you don't observe rights.
The existence of rights.
Yeah, listen closely.
Ideas exist.
Ron, listen closely. You just said, well, belief in God, it doesn't really match up with our observations, but neither do rights.
Rights are ideas. The existence of ideas absolutely matches up with my observations. Maybe not yours.
Where did you
certainly match up with mine?
When did you observe an idea?
I observed the effects of ideas.
I didn't ask you the effects. I asked you the idea.
That's the only thing. Of course, all of these things, I can only observe the effects of things.
Okay.
Even atoms, I can't directly observe atoms. I can't directly observe you.
All
I observe is the light that's coming from my computer monitor that kind of looks like a human being, and my explanation for that.
Focus.
Because we've never actually met face to face.
Ron, focus.
My explanation. Look, I'm talking now.
I'm asking you a direct question. You don't even know what I asked you.
Let me finish.
Finish the answer that you don't even know the question.
The reason I believe that you exist is not because I have any direct experience of you. It's because I see your face and your behavior on a computer monitor, and the best explanation for that is that you're a real person somewhere.
Okay, cool.
But I don't have any direct evidence.
That's great. Can I get back to you saying you observe the effects of an idea?
Yeah, I'd like to observe the effects of you.
Hold on.
I observe the effects of your ideas.
Dude, can you stop for a second?
I'm answering your question.
Come on, stop for a second. You don't even know. I didn't even ask you something. I said, let's bring it back to your statement.
Okay.
When you say, I observe the effects of an idea, can you give me an example of an idea and how you linked, because you're saying there's a causal relationship between an idea and an effect. Can you give me an idea that you can draw out materially that caused an effect?
I don't know what you mean by draw it materially, but I'll give you an example of an idea that's causing an effect that I can observe.
Are effects
and that
physical?
Is the ideas that are in your head that are causing you to say the things that you're saying.
Did you observe ideas in my head causing me to do anything?
I observe the effects of those ideas. I observe you saying things,
Ron,
and I explain the things that you say by hypothesizing that there are ideas in your head that are causing you to say these words.
Ron, how did you determine ideas, things that are non-material, maybe from your view, are causing anything?
That, again, is a long story.
What a surprise. So if you can't answer it, that's fine. But the thing is...
I can answer it. How did I determine it? By studying how brains work, by actually many years of thinking about it.
You thought about it. Thank God.
By doing a lot of reading, a lot of study of neuroscience, a lot of doing AI research for
That's great.
20 years.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a long story.
That's great.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you
Do you have a book? Do you have a blog?
Yeah, I do.
Cool. What's your blog?
Have you read it?
No. What is it?
It's called Random Ramblings.
Random Ramblings.
Yep. You can find it at blog.rongarrett.info, and remember that Garrett is spelled with one T.
Oh, guys, we still have 7 minutes left. I wasn't trying to get to
Jimbob,
the channel
because
shoutouts
if you read it, we'd have much more productive discussions.
Okay, well, here's the thing I wanted to say is this all started from a couple of key questions. When I ask, we're in a debate about the truth, right? We're in a debate about
we're in a debate about the reasonableness.
I thought I was talking. So reasonableness is a claim about truth. Is it reasonable?
No.
Hold on, Ron.
It's not.
Ron,
it's just not.
Ron, shut the fuck up.
Guys, we can make this the kind of official closing statements and give you both about 3 to 5 minutes each if you like. And then if you would mute yourself when the other person's talking, and you can say whatever you want to say for your closing.
So the reason I asked about truth, it's a truth claim. To say something's reasonable or not reasonable is a truth claim. That's an actual statement. If it's true or not, that it's reasonable is a truth claim. You can't remove epistemology, the knowledge of something, and the statement of truth, and also it's connected to another category called ontology, and we're trying to establish all of this, right? Like, what is reasonable to believe in? Now, through this debate, Ron went through a variety of criterions that he didn't hold to. He started with, well, what's a reasonable belief is something that's necessary for me to do all other things or something like that. And then I asked, well, do you believe in rights? And he said, yes. And I said, are those necessary for you to do these other things? And he said, no. He said, no, rights are necessary for people to claim that they exist. Well, that applies to God too. The reason I ask about truth, though, is if truth exists and you believe truth exists, Ron's view is you have to believe truth exists in order to do all these other things. The question is, do you have any other reason to believe it other than utility? Now, if he argues utility is a good reason to believe anything exists, then a belief in God, so long as it provides utility, is a reasonable belief. I thought I established that pretty quickly, pretty early in the debate. I don't know how many times, because I don't have a counter on me, but I'm thinking of buying one of those umpire counters or the bouncer tickers, because he conceded to the debate probably like 5 different times without me even prodding him to. He just kind of did it on his own, which, I appreciate. So to the question of whether or not it's reasonable to believe in God, I think what I demonstrated tonight is from Ron's view, it's as reasonable to believe in God as it is to believe anything else, so long as, one, early on, that you trust the person that's telling you until you grow up. But until you grow up, and once you grow up, what's reasonable is what's necessary for you to interact with the world. Well, if a person says and reasonably believes that it's necessary for God to exist to operate in the world, then by all means, it's a reasonable belief. I don't understand Ron's position where he draws the line between a reasonable belief and an unreasonable belief if he further dug himself a hole and said, all of our beliefs are determined arbitrarily and subjectively. He said he had a belief that God exists because he was at some sort of Pentecostal camp where he's speaking in tongues, and the Spirit came over him, right? He said at the time that was reasonable to believe in God right there. Well, I said, interesting. If someone expands that time frame of the experience and you call it the entire life where they experience that, isn't that reasonable? He said, well, no, it's different because they're exposed to new information. I said, look, if the new information keeps producing the phenomenon that God exists, is it reasonable to believe in God? He has to say yes. So all it requires from Ron's view to hold that belief in God is reasonable, regardless of who the God is or what the God is whether or not it gives you a subjective, constant experience that gives you the conclusion that God exists. And that's enough. That's totally enough. It's completely reasonable. And you know why? Because it's all dependent on that person and that person alone. You can't transpose Ron's criterion onto Jimbob's and Jimbob's onto Sally's. It's all nominal experiences. And any nominal experience you have that produces the belief in something, as long as you think it's real, there you go. It's real. It's real enough to you, right? You can't really argue against it from that view. Now, Ron also denied the law of identity. He denied the ontology of the laws of logic being something that are universal and invariant. He said they're conventions, which means that you can change them. He denied the absoluteness of truth, which itself is a contradiction to say, well, truth maybe isn't absolute. Well, if it was the case, that would be an absolute statement about truth. Now, I didn't really get anywhere else here because every time I tried to press on some of these criterions and standards that he holds to, he shifted to something else and started talking about atoms. He denied that there were particular atoms that exist. He denied that items that without names existed in the past with their own identity over time. Like before we name a tree, it's necessary that a past exists that has trees and water and the laws of nature and the regularities that we see, that rocks don't turn into trees or owls. So certainly, if it's the case that you hold that rocks don't turn into trees or owls, unless you're an evolution proponent, then certainly you're holding to the law of identity before you exist. Now, I tried to get here. Here's how I'll finish. If the law of identity is universal and conceptual and precedes all human minds, then a concept needs a mind. When I say God exists before all humans, I'm merely starting with the position that the mind that holds and inhabit that the laws of logic and all universal categories exist in a divine way, they exist in that mind. That's a necessity. That's a reasonable belief. If I call that God, Ron admitted that's a reasonable belief.
Are you done?
Yes.
So I guess I'm on.
He's playing solitaire. He's playing Minecraft. He's muted.
I have to say I am impressed by your ability to speak extemporaneously without pausing for breath. That is a skill that I don't have.
I also don't pee a lot.
The sheer number of false statements in that closing is just overwhelming and staggering, and I don't even know where to begin, except to point out that every time that I actually started answering one of Jimbob's questions in some depth, that he would cut me off and wasn't actually interested in hearing the answer.
Depth.
And so, I mean, I agreed to debate him because I've been watching some of his other debates, and I kind of got the impression that he was actually interested in having a discussion in good faith.
Oh my gosh, stop whining, dude.
And I'm disappointed to learn that seems to not be the case.
Cry harder.
I really tried my best to engage with him and find some common ground to have
I'm disgusted.
a reasonable discussion.
I'm disgusted.
And I'm disappointed that he didn't meet me halfway.
No.
He made a big deal about the fact that I conceded part of the argument. I conceded part of the argument.
No, the whole debate.
these words, God and reasonable, I opened by pointing out that it's important to agree on what these words mean.
Okay.
Because depending on what definitions you use for them, you can turn that into a true statement or a false statement.
Okay.
Jimbob said that reasonableness is a matter of objective truth. I disagree with that. I think reasonableness is a matter of opinion, and reasonable
That's a true
people
statement.
can disagree
That's a
over
truth
what
statement.
is reasonable and what is not.
That's a truth statement.
And I was hoping to have a reasoned discussion about what reasonable meant and what is reasonable and what is not. I couldn't even get a straight answer from him about whether he thought that it's reasonable for a 6-year-old to believe
You said
something
it
that
was.
isn't true if some trustworthy
You
authority
are.
figure tells them.
Okay.
So I don't know where to go from there.
I know. I know. I know you don't. That's
I guess I would suggest to anybody who's actually interested in
read
pursuing
my
these
blog.
issues in good faith, to go read my blog. I'm actually writing a blog about where I just discuss all this
Shameless.
stuff, and I start from ground zero,
What a shameless
where I
whore.
describe my worldview, which is the scientific method.
What a shameless
which is find the
prostitute.
best explanation that accounts for all of your observations, and that starts with Descartes saying that I explain the fact that I am even thinking about stuff with the explanation that I exist, that there's something out there that I call myself that does this thing I call thinking about things.
So glad he's thinking.
Expands from there. It's a very long story.
Oh, sounds like I'm gonna seriously go to my gun safe.
50-year-long story.
Oh gosh.
It involves thousands or tens
Oh
of
my
thousands of
gosh.
people putting in some awfully long hours to figure things out. And we figured out just about everything. And there is nothing that anybody observes in our solar system that cannot be explained with modern science.
Oh really? Really? I would
Of
love
course, for
to.
any given observation, including the observation that people believe.
Wow,
in God, that
bro.
people will insist that they have direct, personal, subjective experience of God constantly. That can also be explained scientifically, but it can't be done in 60 seconds. It requires more time and.
How about an hour?
So. If people are interested,
I can assert things are false without thinking anything is true.
Find it blog.rongarrett.info. Go read it. That's where you'll find all the long stories that I've been.
Oh gosh, kill myself.
Anybody who has questions about it, you can leave comments in my blog. Send me an email. I'm easy to find. And I love talking about this stuff as long as people are engaging in good faith.
Oh, shut up.
And that'll close with that.
All right. Well, thank you guys both for that spirited debate. We got a quick announcement from our sponsors. Then we're going to get into the Q&A super chats. If you guys want to ask these two gentlemen a question, have them both respond to something, send us a super chat. We're going to go for the next 30 minutes for that. And then we'll let them give one more shout out for their channels. And yeah, big appreciation to these guys hashing it out here. All right, real quick from our sponsors, Yonaguni Sushi, International Cuisine. These guys are sponsoring DebateCon 8, Sideshow Bob, restaurant in Puerto Rico. Stop by if you just happen to be there. If not, go ahead and make a trip. They got fried rice. They got pork. They got all sorts of Latin, Asian combinations. I think it's on my list personally. So definitely stop by and see Bob at DebateCon 8 if you're there. He's one of our head coordinators, and he also sometimes moderates the debates live. So thank you. All right, guys, we are back.
Oh.
Did you know
Q&A.
Bob that, or Jimbob that
Yeah.
Bob owns that restaurant?
Who's Bob?
He's the guy.
Oh,
who
yeah,
brings
yeah.
People in. He
Oh,
does the
yeah.
moderation as well.
Oh,
It's
nice.
his restaurant.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very cool place.
That's awesome. I love sushi.
All right, so first one here. Real quick, let me just run through these. I appreciate all these people becoming members on YouTube. MTG Kosi, Jacob, Bedaris, Alex James, Bog HD, Curino, White Mike, Kelly Anderson, Uptown Red, John Anthony Green, Miss Claymore, and CJ Johnson. Appreciate you guys. First question is from Marilyn.
Marilyn.
You are all God because of God. You're both idol worshippers. Still love you, Jimbob. King Crown Heart.
Well, if we're all God and you're God and me and Ron team up as gods and disagree with you, then we don't know who's
Chattagich
truly
made
God,
grok.
right?
Grok made me and
Right,
make
Ron?
curry from the
God
sewer
contains
river, which is
multitudes.
divine.
Right?
And Ron,
Right,
you
Ron?
can respond to any that are addressed to him and vice versa, just so you know. So don't be surprised if he jumps in if something is addressed to you. Chef Secret Sauce Nasty just sent a buck. Thank you, sir. You probably already got the pizza question out of both of them. That makes sense. Just an acknowledgement that you're here. Appreciate it. Pseudonym 8344 says, "Wake up, Ron. This will be over soon." I think that's referencing your dreaming comment.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
I have no idea how to respond to that. I mean, clearly it was meant to be a joke, so haha.
1 second, Mike. In your concloser, I just want to clarify something. You said everything we observe in the universe can be explained by science. I wondered if that included the behaviors themselves that need to exist before you do science.
Yes, that's one of the very interesting things about science is you can actually explain how the scientific method, why the scientific method works in terms of the scientific method. It's very interesting, but it's a long story.
You want to give us a quick synopsis? Short response?
It has to do with Turing machines and universal Turing machines and the fact that the universe can be explained in terms of computation. And I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous, and I can see Jimbob scoffing at this. And
he always looks like that.
Yeah, I know. But sometimes he's really scoffing. And in particular, when I say something like that, I get that it just sounds ridiculous when you first hear it. I get that. I sympathize. All I can say is,
read my blog.
And I'm not. No. Now I'm going to say something that sounds like I'm tooting my own horn.
Oh, do it.
But you'll notice that I don't generally make a big deal about the fact that I have a PhD and that I work for NASA.
Oh, wow.
But and you're right. I mean, just
show me your lanyard. Show me your lanyard.
I'm not saying these things to say, because I have these credentials that anybody should give me any credence.
Wait a second, Ron. I have one question.
I'm saying these things because I'm asking somebody who's listening to me and hears me say something that sounds ridiculous.
Have you
consider the possibility that I might not be a complete idiot?
Well,
and that I actually
no one's thinking that, Ron. I don't know where you got this idea that people were thinking that. So
well, you act like it sometimes.
So, Ron, the question I asked, it doesn't make sense, right? Because science, if you took a basic philosophy of science, the assumption of the regularity of nature gives you the capability of then doing scientific investigation and experiments. It doesn't?
No, it doesn't. And I know that you think that.
Really?
Yeah.
So science doesn't. So hold on. I just want to make sure. Wait. Let me just clarify. You're holding the position that in order to do science, a scientific experiment, it's not an assumption that the regularity of nature maintains its patterns.
That's right. And
okay.
That's right. And this is very interesting because this is a realization that I didn't come to until fairly late in this exploration. And by the way, my blog, I've been writing my blog for over 20 years now. And as a matter of principle, I've never deleted an entry. That's not quite true. There's one entry in 20 plus years.
Accidental photo. Yeah.
Because I wrote something in it that I just deeply
anti-Semite.
No, it
anti-Semite.
was criticizing somebody who didn't deserve to be criticized, and so I deleted it.
Yeah.
But
cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
And so sometimes I get things wrong, and
Lock
my mistakes are there in the record. And one of the things that's interesting to me, at least, is that about 10 years ago, I wrote an entry whose title was "Why Some Assumptions Are Better Than Others," because I was wrestling with this exact question that you're bringing up.
Uh-huh.
And I thought
it's amazing,
that
Ron.
you had to make some assumptions in
Shut
order to
up!
do reasoning. And so I was trying to come up with an argument for why my assumptions
It's
were
time
better
for
than
pudding,
somebody else's
Ron.
assumptions.
Ron, it's time for
and
pudding.
I put forth an argument. that turns out to be wrong.
Ron, it's time for your
It
pudding.
turns out you actually don't need to make any assumptions. The scientific method is self-booting. It's a self-hosting.
Is that an assumption?
It's really no, it's a conclusion, and it's actually very interesting.
How do you make
how do you
make a conclusion without assumptions first?
By advancing a hypothesis and subjecting that hypothesis to criticism and seeing if it passes all of the criticism. Eventually, you get to the point where the best explanations you have are ones that nobody can improve on without a tremendous amount of effort.
Okay.
And by the
I
way,
take
one of the
that
reasons
back.
that I believe
Grok
in
made the vlog, and the
truth
curry
and
runs
existence
through
of
me
objective
like
truth,
trash
Yeah.
does
it's
through
not
the
an
holy
assumption. It's
river.
because
really?
of an observation, and the observation is that science converges. There are revolutions in science. There's a very particular structure to these revolutions. Whenever there's big new ideas in science are fairly rare.
Have you ever studied filibustering in science?
Let me just finish this thought.
Have you ever considered going to San Francisco and getting someone to do a beatbox behind you and doing this?
Okay, well, like I said, Jimbob is not interested in
I am not interested. Neither is the entire audience.
Okay. Next question.
All right. Just had to unmute there. Okay. We got a couple more here. Dataless.
Was that mean? Was that too mean?
I can't.
Am I a mean drunk?
He says, Ron, can you do basic math without the laws of logic? And where do you think humanity would be without logic?
Yeah, I learned to do basic math in elementary school, and I had no idea about the laws of logic then. You can do basic math just by following an algorithm. So
algorithms are based on logic, dude. If-then statements, algorithms, if-then, that's logic. You're really frustrating me. I'm like old person's home. You're saying nonsense, bro. Nonsense. Shame.
So you gotta let him at least finish, and then you say whatever you want, Jimbo.
Okay, sorry about that.
So I guess, all right. So there are two different ways that I can interpret that question. Can I do math without understanding myself the laws of logic and the foundations of mathematics? Yes, I can. Most people do basic arithmetic without understanding the foundations of math. Is it possible to do math without the foundations of math somehow governing the universe or underlying this entire process? No, because the universe turns out does operate according to laws, and those laws can be described in terms of logic.
And real quick, second part
again, it depends on the meanings of the words.
All right. And the second part of the question was, where do you think humanity would be without logic?
Well, most of humanity gets along just fine without logic, because I think most of humanity doesn't understand logic. Certainly up through for most of the history of humanity, we didn't really have a good understanding of logic and how it worked. And the best example of that is that for most of the history of humanity, people believed that Euclid's parallel postulate was self-evidently true.
He did look hurt.
Question.
He did look hurt.
And that turns out not to be correct. And in fact, the realization that it turned out not to be correct, that was the harbinger of a revolution in mathematics and lots of real breakthroughs.
Oh, this is not, dude. If you're not,
we wouldn't have
say by
modern
truth.
science without
If you're not looking
that.
at this
So,
guy and
yeah,
going, "This
it's
is
quite possible for
insane,"
humanity
it's
to
weird.
get by without understanding logic.
EBT is
Most
so
of our
against
history, we've done
orthodoxy
exactly
that he'll side with retarded materialists.
All right. Thank you for answering that. Just want to remind the chat, we got a poll up here. James went ahead and threw that in for you guys in between planning DebateCon 9. We're already planning for the fall, guys. It's going to be fun. All right. So next question is Ron.
Scud material,
this
yeah.
one's
Scud material.
better
Yeah.
right before.
Absolutely, dude.
Jimbob, afterlife and God exist. Dr. Ron, I don't know. It's subjective. That was more of a statement. Apologies.
No, I think there's very good reason to believe that there is no afterlife. I can't prove it, but I think there's very good reason to believe that our subjective experiences are a product of the brain. They're purely physical, and that when your brain dies, that's it. Your consciousness goes away. Sorry to have to be the one to break this to you. And yeah, it kind of sucks, but that's the way it is.
Well, no, it's not the way it is. That's the way you believe it is, which is
Well, yeah,
arbitrary.
obviously, it's the way. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I kind of hope I'm wrong. It would be great.
Wait a second. Why do you hope you're wrong?
I don't want to die. I think it would be great if there were an afterlife.
So if it
I don't
gave
think there is.
But yeah, but if it gave you utility in your life and it gave you some advantage in life to making it through, would that be a justified belief? Would that be a reasonable belief if it gave you comfort to believe?
No, reasonable beliefs are those that are necessary to explain observations. That's what I consider to be a reasonable belief.
Hold on,
and
Ron.
believing in something that's false.
Ron, the observation is it gives you comfort. Can you observe people being in comfort?
Yes.
Okay, so
this gets into ethics and white lies. Yeah, I believe that there are situations where telling somebody, allowing people to believe things that aren't true, it can be the right thing to do. Out of compassion.
Great. So
not because they're
if we could demonstrate that it was an advantage and gave people an upper hand and gave them something that would otherwise be absent by believing something false, would you advocate for believing something false?
I have a very hard time imagining situations in today's world where it's really advantageous to believe false things.
Rights are not true.
I see a lot more. They're not false.
Yeah, but they're not. They're fictions, dude. You look, dude. The noble lie of a right.
Ideas. Not all ideas are fictions.
I know, but look, the idea of a right isn't actually grounded in experimentation or empirics, right? You agree?
No.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Wait. Don't say that. Don't bail on me, dude. Just go with me for a second.
Sorry, but that's the way it is.
Don't say it's complicated.
My name is Bitvagin, and I'm not a poopy fed.
And accept that I'm about to oversimplify, then yeah.
Dude, it's a really simple.
Rights are not grounded in empiricism.
Great. So the belief in rights, if it's an advantage and a good thing for people on net balance to believe in rights, aren't you advocating for a belief in something that's otherwise unjustified?
There is a difference between otherwise unjustified and actually at odds with observation.
Okay.
All right. One more time, guys. We have a poll in the chat. Just wanted to remind everybody. And oh, you guys are sending Happy Mother's Day gifts? I didn't even know that was a thing. Thank you, everybody who did that. Okay, Delphil1111 says,
Jimbob, are you awake?
Get here late, WJB. Ron,
I'm convinced I'm a solar block tour of science Hindu now.
You don't think so?
I didn't even notice
there
that.
Wasn't the last time I looked.
All right.
But to be perfectly honest, I haven't checked lately, so
you don't have to show us.
Can't completely rule it out.
Okay. Bobby Bags here for $2 says, Ron, name a quote conspiracy theory you believe is true.
I believe that the Republicans are conspiring to steal the November election.
Nice. Go Israel.
I'm curious on your perspective on that same question, Jimbob. I'm a conspiracist. I believe most of them, and then I debunk one. I start with I believe they're true, and then I go. I don't do the opposite. I don't assume they're false. I assume they're all true, and then I go. I pull back on them. That's what I do. Smart.
Yeah.
Okay. Bobby again for 5 says, Ron, would you agree that diversity is our strength for America?
I value diversity. Yes. And not just in the DEI sense. I value diversity in all things as a virtue in and of itself, but that's just my opinion, and reasonable people can disagree. I like variety. I think life gets boring otherwise.
I'll extend the offer to answer that as well, Jimbob, if you want.
No, I don't think diversity is a strength. Even basic systems theorists, if you look at any system that's workable, there's a sort of cohesiveness and homogeny to it. And things that are diverse and incompatible can't be valued on mere diversity as some sort of virtue. It's true that if there's a bunch of people who don't speak the same language and having a miscommunication produces conflict, then the diversity of language isn't a good thing if it produces conflict, right, and confusion. And if you have miscommunication, it could elevate to violence. And if you hold that violence isn't necessarily a goal, then diversity in so many cases is such a shit show. And I think we're seeing that today with open borders.
I actually just thought of an objective argument for why diversity is good, because it puts you in a better position to deal with a wider variety of unexpected contingencies, because you have a broader base of experience and life experiences and skills. And even in biological terms, biodiversity is good because the opposite of diversity is inbreeding.
So wait a second. Are you saying that there's a biological that like races are actually fundamentally ontologically different?
No.
Oh.
No. I'm saying that this is a completely different thing. I took the question to mean diversity in general.
Yeah, but Ron, the thing is, hold on. Yeah, but the thing is, you said better, and the thing is, if you really truly hold diversity, you're holding a plurality of what constitutes better. So, isn't it true that you can have a cluster of people who actually have a different definition of better than you?
Yeah.
Is that diversity? Do you advocate for that?
So this is again one of those really hard problems, which I've actually done quite a bit of thinking about, and which I have an answer for, but
at your blog.
Yeah. Yes, it's on my blog. Look up the keyword to search for there is ideaism. That's the best label I've been able to come up with for the answer that I came up with for this question. That's a really long story. And this is Q&A, so this is not the time or place for that.
All right, then we will move on to the next one.
That's definitely a fossil, dude. That's definitely a fossil up there, right?
From Rachel Wilson,
that's a
member
fossil.
for 5 months here on the Final Word. Thanks, Rachel.
Rachel,
good to see you in the chat. Bob, it's 2026. Nobody reads blogs. Maybe she meant to say Ron.
Yeah, I know. What can I say?
Have you considered OnlyFans?
I was not expecting you to say that.
Yeah, a suggestion like that is just what I would expect from you, Jim.
What? No, OnlyFans isn't only for nudity or
originally it was big photography, DJs, things like that.
No, you could do an evolution thing on OnlyFans, dude.
There's Medium and what's the hot one nowadays? Substack.
Substack.
Yeah, Substack.
Yeah.
But I started writing my blog 20 years ago, and back then Blogger was the hot thing, and so I started with Blogger, and I've been on Blogger ever since.
Only Rons.
And like I said, I do this as a hobby. I don't have career aspirations here. I don't really care if I have a lot of followers. I'm putting it out there for people who are interested and so that the people who are interested can find it. But if I have just a small handful of people who are interested, that's fine with me.
Ron, you're pleasant.
I try to be. I wasn't always.
Oh, really? You have a ponytail?
You should have known me when I was younger.
Do you have a flame tattoo on your back?
No tattoos, but I did used to have long hair and a beard.
I could see that, yeah.
Well, I used to have hair.
Hippie. You were a hippie, weren't you? You did a hippie thing.
I was never a hippie, but
Buddhist. Did you do Buddhism?
I was never a Buddhist, no.
Damn. I'm off tonight.
I was a Christian for 3 days. Other than that, I've been an atheist the whole time.
I can't bring up the poll now. I don't know why. I dismissed it.
That's true, Emmanuel. That's hilarious.
Okay, pseudonym 8344 for 5. Thanks, pseudonym.
Give us a smile.
Of the channel. At Jimbob, I don't know if Ron was leaning leaning the Bible is a comic book. Can you give him scientific evidence that donkeys talk? Someone separates a C and Superman's better than Batman.
Well, no, that would be a different, completely different paradigm. We don't hold to miracles based on naturalism. That defeats the entire paradigm. We hold that things can be violated from this perspective, right? And we don't use naturalism to affirm supernaturalism, right? And by the way, you can't actually defend a naturalistic view without affirming things that you can't find in nature, right? That's in my opener. So it's like when someone says, "Oh, you believe in miracles?" Look, dude, based on your standard of what a miracle is something that can't be explained by the laws of physics. Guess what can't be explained by the laws of physics? The regularity of nature that you need to then explain. No, it can't.
It absolutely can.
Ron, listen to what I'm saying.
But it's going to no, I'm telling you that it can.
I know, but I don't think
it's going to take longer than 30 seconds.
Look. In order to explain the phenomenon of nature, right? In order to explain it and have any confidence in the reliability of your explanation, you have to first assume that it's going to maintain its regularity.
I used to believe that too, and it turns out not to be true.
If it turns out not to be true, it can only turn out not to be true temporarily until it's true.
It turns out that you can demonstrate the regularity of nature, that you can demonstrate that the regularity is required to explain what we observe.
That's what I said.
But it's not inductive. It's not.
Science isn't inductive.
Science is not inductive.
Okay.
Absolutely not. We've been through this.
Science is not inductive.
Science is not inductive. It is abductive.
Okay, no, abductive would assume that you have you're observing a pattern, right?
No.
So, what are you talking about? Dude, how could you make an abductive conclusion if you're not observing something in regularity?
You really want me to answer that?
Yes.
It can. It'll take a few minutes.
No. Stop doing that, dude. Stop. I hate that, dude.
These things are complicated. Some of these things are complicated, and they just require some time. I know you want everything.
Can you define abductive then, please, for the audience?
It's finding the best explanation that accounts for
what? Oh, no. Operations that are regular?
Yeah, that can be explained.
That's inductive.
Nope.
Regularity is inductive. You actually observe things over time.
No.
Stop. Hold on. Inductive. You take a set of particulars in time and you come to a generality of the particulars. Yes?
Yeah.
Regularity of things and how they operate. To say there's a set of operations is to view a set of particulars operating in a certain way over time. Yeah?
That's right.
That's inductive.
Yeah, but that's not how science works.
Science doesn't work on observing the regularity of nature?
It works by coming up with explanations for all
dude, you're such a dodger, bro. Observing what?
Irregular ones.
No. How do you determine what's irregular if you don't presuppose regular?
Regular is just a label that we humans have invented.
Oh, you invented it. Okay.
Humans have invented.
Cool. How do you invent something without regularity?
I'm happy to explain that to you.
You can't explain it, dude. You're a sophist. You know, you're a nice guy, but you need to be taken care of.
Let me make sure this is at the right
Ad
frame rate.
hominem attack. So the last refuge of the defender of the untenable position.
There we go. Okay, we're gonna hit the rest of these super chats. We got a couple coming in right now and a few that we haven't gotten to yet. All right. Tagoch 284 sent $10. Thank you, sir. What's Ron's favorite flavor of pudding? I think it's time for some pudding, Ron.